The Nigerian Immigration Service has bemoaned the unnecessary deaths and hardships facing Nigerians attempting to travel outside the country through illegal means. The Comptroller of Ekiti State Command, Ademola Abdulrashed, who said Nigerians could travel abroad for reasons best known to them, advised that such must be safe, orderly and regular. Abdulrashed, who spoke in Ado-Ekiti, said the Japa syndrome is a big challenge to those en routing illegal ports of exits in the quest for greener pastures. He lamented that many of Nigeria's youth die in the Sahara deserts, the Mediterranean, and so on which it is not worth it. Let's have a quick chat on this. Joining us now is Hirsch, who is Group Leader of Migration Governance Reform Program at the New South Institute. Thank you so much for your time here, Alan. We've had repeated deaths of African migrants trying to cross the Mediterranean to Europe. This journey is perilous, but why is it such an option, an attractive option at that for migrants despite these dangers?
Well, it usually is an option either because their circumstances are really difficult. There's war, there's civil conflict, or there's persecution of certain people, but that's not really the case in Nigeria. It could also be because people see better economic prospects, better opportunities to educate their children, and a better future. And when there's inequality between countries to the extent that there is globally at the moment, it's not surprising that people do want to take risks to get to places where they could be much better off. I don't know how they make the calculation. I've never spoken to a migrant in that sort of situation, and there are experts who do that. And it seems like a very brave, but also a very potentially foolhardy thing to do, but people have their reasons.
I see. So let's look at the North African countries that have become exit points for migrants who embark on the dangerous journey. There's Libya, there's Tunisia, there's Algeria. Now, is there nothing that these countries can do to stem this tide and check the use of their shores as illegal exit points outside of the way they're treating sub-Saharan people from sub-Saharan African countries at the moment?
Well, there are options, and in some cases, some of the potential target countries for migrants have given assistance to African countries and to countries in other parts of the Mediterranean region, in particular, like Turkey. Very significant subsidies to discourage them from moving on. In the case of Libya, there've been camps. People have been put into camps, but that's not an option that we'd like to see. It seems to be something that requires a much more concerted action, cooperative action between the countries of West Africa, North Africa, and in fact, the Horn of Africa, where a lot of African migrants come from too. But let's not overstate the African role in this illegal migration to Europe and other parts of the world. Africans are in quite a small minority of those people who desperately trying to move abroad. If you look at the Middle East and parts of Central America, there are much more people who are doing this kind of thing. So it is a serious issue, and obviously for the families that are affected and the people who are affected, it's terrible. But I think that in the long run, development in those North African countries, in the West African countries, as incomes improve, as opportunities increase, that will reduce. But migration is a natural part of human history. It's not something where it's really possible to turn off the taps. So another possibility, and a better possibility, would be for countries like the European countries, which actually many of them need young people who are willing to work and are educated or skilled, for them to create better channels to participate in the economies of Europe, possibly through full migration, but also possibly through long-term contract labor. They could establish a relationship with Niger, for example, or Burkina Faso, or labor exporting countries, for people to return to the same place of work year after year, but then go back home and bring money home to their families, which is often desperately needed. So there are a number of options, but it's really hard to completely turn it off.
Well, so they do need young people, but do they want young people from Africa? Are they making it any easier for young people in Africa to be able to fill those spaces if they want to?
Well, there's so many people from now the Ukraine, from Syria, from Afghanistan, that Africans are a small part of the equation. Those young Africans who are skilled, say for example, I'm currently in the UK. In the UK, you have people from all over Africa doing jobs in the health sector, doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, people in other kinds of roles. Those young people from Africa are in very great demand. In fact, some African countries are worried about losing talent in that way. The problem is more the low-skilled people. So low-skilled people from Africa and other parts of the world are discouraged because they're not seen to be making the kind of contribution that they could be making. Whether there is prejudice, particularly against Africans, I think that certainly is the case in some European countries. And that becomes part of the anti-migrant narrative, and it becomes part of the populist politics in Europe. Although it's never said explicitly. It's always done in the dog whistle way, in the way where there are signals given that are not explicit, because nobody wants to be able to be called explicitly a racist. But I think Africans are in a more difficult position in terms of acceptance, particularly in the low-skilled areas.
Alan, we'll leave it here for now. Thank you so much for your insight on the matter.
Thank you.
Alan.